That's it. So if you've all accepted, then we can begin. Wonderful. Okay, so let's start today in a seated position. So if you're comfortable to do so, we can sit either cross-legged. Remember, if you're sitting cross-legged and you have any limitation in the knees or the hips, you might want to use something like a block. It just lifts the hips a little higher and it gives the knees a little bit more space so that there's less tension on the joints. If cross-leg doesn't work for you, you can always sit wide leg and just keep a little gap behind the knees. So the intention in our cross-leg position is to ensure that we create what feels like a plumb line from the back of the head to the tailbone. So almost as though if you were to lean back, you'd feel the back of the head, the back of the sacrum form a straight line. And we'll allow that natural undulation in the spine to occur. So there might be a little curve at the space between the shoulder blades. There'll be a little lift in the lower back. And we want to be mindful of lifting the rib cage up off of the belly, drawing the shoulder blades together, softening the shoulders away from the ears so we leave ourselves lots of space through the chest, through the collarbones. And then we'll bring the backs of the hands to rest on the inner thighs. So even when you're in a laid down position, I'll mention to you the benefits of opening the palms, this gesture of receptivity, being ready to receive positive energy. If you're happy to do so, take a moment to close the eyes or soften the gaze down in front of you, relaxing the tongue in the well of the mouth, softening the cheeks and the chin, relaxing the eyebrows. If you're concentrating too hard, you might feel a little frown forming in your brow. So let's iron that out. Allow a little whisper of breath between the lips. And bring your awareness to the breath. Follow the breath from the tip of the nose along the nasal passages. Feel the breath in the top third of the lungs. That natural opening and expansion. That softening and releasing. And as you tune in a little more deeply to the breath, you might notice the breath slowing down. Taking a little more time to come to the end of your full inhalation, to the full exhalation. We can think of every inhale charging the body with positive energy. Every full exhale releasing the body of any tension, any negative energy. It may be that you're aware of a part of the body where you hold pain or limitation. Try sending the breath to any part of the body that may be asking for a little extra attention. Mindful that with every out-breath, you give space and permission to release that tension. Every in-breath serves to nourish and energize. Through this deepened, lengthened breath, you might notice the belly rise on the inhale, then soften and release on the exhale. Let's reposition the hands for a moment just to feel the effect here. So place the right hand on the belly, the left hand on the heart. As you take your next full deep breath in, feel the pressure under the right hand as the belly rises. As you exhale, feel the heart soften, widen. Inhaling deeply to the belly, the chest and the collarbones. Exhaling fully from the collarbones, the chest, and the belly last. Almost as though you're filling a balloon from the bottom up, emptying that balloon from the top down. This is the action that we call the deep yogic breath. So we often return to this breath pattern, particularly when we're in the more energetic postures, shall we say, so that we keep the breath in rhythm. Breathe in through the nose and out through the mouth. In through the nose and out through the mouth. Releasing this next exhale with an audible sigh. Feel how the shoulders release, that weight through the sit bones, that release in the inner thighs. On your next in-breath, feel yourself lift and lengthen out of the sit bones, realigning the back of the head with the tailbone, keeping the underside of the chin parallel to the floor. Take a moment to remove the hands from the heart, from the belly, and replace the hands, palms facing upwards on the inner thighs. When you're ready, blink the eyes open. Then bring the hands once more in front of the heart, this time to an Anjali Mudra. Inhale to lift and lengthen the arms overhead, pressing through the fingers, taking length through the body. Go a bit further back so you can see my arms. Then as you exhale, engage the core and draw the hands back again to that heart center. So I'm mindful that we have started in a cross-leg position. So I'm going to suggest that we'll take the opposite foot in front or behind. If you started in a wide leg position, then maybe use a pillow or a cushion underneath your bottom, just so that we can find a little bit of a cross leg, just so that we can start to open out that space in the inner thighs. So once more, lift and lengthen the arms overhead. Because the legs are stacked differently, the dominance is different through the hips. When we're in this posture, it's important that we feel equally weighted through the sit bones. I'm simply going to adjust how I hold the hands. So rather than the Anjali Mudra, we'll bring the thumbs together in an interlock so that we're gently almost pulling the thumbs away from one another, pressing again through the fingertips, softening the shoulders from the ears. Then on an exhale, extend the body over to the right side and turn your gaze up to the left corner of the room. Inhale to widen and expand through the chest. Exhale to engage the core. Then inhale back to center. On the next out breath, take it over to the other side. Try not to lift the knee. Try not to lean onto that right sit bone, or left sit bone, should I say. Inhale back to center. Then bring the hands back again to heart. Soften the shoulders away from the ears. Inhale to lift the rib cage up. Then on the next exhale, place left hand to right knee, right hand behind the hip. Follow the rib cage and come into a gentle twist on this side. Let's keep the arms low as we simply thread the opposite hand to the opposite knee. And inhale to lift and lengthen out the sit bones. And exhale to twist and open that left side of the rib cage towards the back of the room. On the next exhalation, keep the hands low and bring the hands to rest in front of the ankles. Inhale to lift up. Exhale to gently walk the hands forward. Positioning the elbows towards the floor. So with every out breath, easing a little more deeply into this fold. Let's relax the shoulders. There's no tension here. Let the weight of your sternum draw you towards the earth. Remain wide through the collarbones, engaged through the core. Bring the gaze to the end of the fingertips, then walk the hands back towards the ankle. Replacing the hands behind the hips, drawing the shoulder blades together, keeping those knees soft, the inner thighs released, as you lead with the sternum to turn your gaze up towards the ceiling. Keep relaxing the shoulders away from the ears, open through the heart space. Then as you exhale, release, engage the core, and bring your gaze to face forward again. Let's make it more comfortable in and around the hips by widening the feet. So coming to a wide leg fold. Again, the intention is to remain lifted out the sit bones. Try if you can avoid rolling back into the tailbone. So it may feel as though your weight is ever so slightly edging forward. Lining up again the back of the head with the tailbone. I always keep a little gap behind the knees for comfort. Then reposition the hands on the floor. On an out breath, try that little walk forward again. So for most of us, this is quite a challenging posture. There's going to be restriction in the inner thighs. Sometimes there's tightness in the lower back. I would always recommend that we keep soft in the shoulders. So it's not about getting your head down. It's more about perhaps easing those elbows to the floor and hinging into this space, opening into the inner thighs. Engaging the core, pressing the palms into the mat, then lifting the sternum as we walk back to center. Let's do this one leg at a time, slightly more comfortable. So bending the right knee, placing the sole of that foot to the inside of the left thigh, lifting again out of the sit bones, then attempting that little walk forward once more. So because we have one leg extended, there's nowhere to hide. You'll feel it all in the back of the hamstring, in the inner thigh. If it starts to pull on the knee, give yourself a little more space. Again, the intention is to ease the elbows towards the floor, to deepen the stretch in the inner thigh. And if you notice that your body weight is all onto the right sit bone and you've lifted the left butt cheek off the floor, then we need to come back to center. Engage the core, walk the hands back to the ankle, then extend the right leg, bring the left foot in. Lift up and lengthen, come back into that fold, and it won't feel the same on both sides. We've always got one side that's a little more tight than the other. Every out breath, we're releasing deeper into this space. Notice how that's quite a subtle stretch to the inner thigh. Engage the core, then walk the hands back again towards the ankle. Perfect. Now let's bring the soles of the feet together. We've created a little more space now in and around the hips and the inner thigh. Oftentimes if we draw the heels too close, this feels a little more intense on the knees. So don't be worried about taking the feet a little further away for comfort. On an inhale, draw the knees in towards the body. On an exhale, soften the knees open. Inhaling, lifting the knees in. This time on the exhale, draw the tummy button in and bring yourself gently up through the center. Inhale. Exhale to engage and lengthen. Then we'll keep the knees wide. On the next exhale, extend the sternum forward. Take hold of the feet if that's more comfortable. And again, we're coming into this fold position. Keeping a little bit of discipline between the shoulders. So notice that if you drop the head, chances are you'll probably curve the spine. So lead with the sternum. Diagonal line from the back of the head to the tailbone. Then as you exhale, engage the core. As you inhale, come back to center. Take hold of the right big toe, push through the heel. So we're trying to balance between the sit bones. If you allow all of your weight to go onto the left sit bone, you will overbalance. So remain in center and perhaps use that left arm so that you can feel that opening through the chest, that lift and lengthen out of the sit bones. Then bring that right foot back in. Swap over to the left. Widen through the right arm. It helps with the balance, helps to open the heart. Keep pressing through the heel. It's a very different stretch. It's not quite that inner thigh shape. It's back again to the back of the hamstring. Then bring that foot back to center. I think this is the one we had a laugh with last week. Lift both heels. Keep lifting out of the sit bones. And if you can't quite reach the feet, you might want to try the ankles. The feet just give you a really good purchase point because you're almost like pulling your upper body weight into the strength of the legs. And for everyone that rolls over, I get 5 points. So don't let me down. Then as you exhale, keep the core engaged, bring the soles of the feet together, widen the knees, lift up and lengthen, then hinge forward. Nice. Now lift back up to center. Because we spent a lot of time opening the inner thighs and warming into the hip joints, let's now quiet all of that down by extending both legs forward. So coming into a Dandasana pose. If I sit side on, you'll see the shape that we intend here. So in the Dandasana pose, it's not unusual that the tightness at the back of the legs or the calves kind of foreshortens the body and it pulls you further forward and often curves the spine. So our intention here is to create space, lifting out of the sit bones, lining up the back of the head with the tailbone, switching those toes on so they're pointing up towards the ceiling, and just keeping that little gap running between the inner thighs and in between the feet. Extend both arms forward, keep that core engaged, then inhale to lift the arms up, pressing through the fingers, softening the shoulders away from the ears. Focus on your breath. Try not to clench the jaw here, tongue soft. Sending that cooling, nourishing breath down to the thighs, which feel warm now. Then on your next exhale, bring the palms together, engage the core, slide the hands back to the heart space. Reposition the hands either side of the hips, walk the feet in. So we'll come to a 90-degree angle on the knees, lifting the bottom, pressing the shins forward, opening through the chest. Then as you exhale, lower the sit bones back to the floor and support back as you roll down through the spine, bringing us to a rested position here. So back of the head supported, resting on the flats of the shoulder blades, palms once more turned up to the ceiling, positioning the heels hip width apart, again with that gap between the knees, bringing your awareness again to the breath. So as you exhale, drawing the tummy button in and feeling that little gap in the lower back, just gently filling there. Inhale to widen through the chest. Exhale to draw the tummy button in. This time as you inhale to widen through the chest, lift and lengthen through the right leg, pointing and flexing through the toe, mobilizing the ankle joint. Then bringing that foot to full flexion, keeping that left foot on the floor, keeping the hips equally weighted, then lowering that right heel down so that both thighs are level. Now use the big toe to draw 3 circles in towards the midline of the body. Then change direction, take those circles the opposite way. Point through the toe, flex through the toe, push again through the heel. Then on and out breath, keep that core engagement to float the heel down an inch from the mat. On the in-breath, lift the arms overhead. So now the backs of the hands are rested an inch from the floor. We'll bring the thumbs together in an interlock. We'll make sure that right foot remains in flexion. Then on and out breath, push the upper body to the left side and you'll feel a deeper stretch to the right of the waist and the ribcage. Inhale again to return to center. Separate the hands. On the next out breath, bend that right knee up, lift the shoulders towards the thigh and come into a little crunch posture here. So inhaling to lengthen, pushing the right leg away, exhaling to come up into the crunch. So I would always advocate when we come up into the crunch that we push that space in the lower back to the floor, that we don't overwork the neck. So you'll remember from doing tummy exercises with Emma, we're very careful not to nod the chin to the chest. That just puts strain on the neck. So imagine that you have a fixed point in the ceiling and we're using that to keep our gaze steady. We don't need to use the hands to pull on the shin. We're literally bringing the hands either side of the thigh, opening, then releasing. Let's do one more crunch up. Now reposition the hands behind the thigh. We're kind of in a static contraction here. Then gently roll down through the spine, let the back of the head rest. Press through the right heel, sole of the foot parallel to the ceiling. We'll just tug a little deeper stretch into the back of the hamstring by drawing that right thigh towards the chest. Our intention here is to press through the heel, see if we can iron out that little bend in the knee. Then on and out breath, bend the right knee, replace that foot to the floor. Hands again either side of the hips, equally weighted through the flats of the shoulder blades, the back of the hips. Engage the core once more, then inhale to lift and lengthen through the left leg. So again, we'll do that little sequence of pointing and flexing through the toe. This helps to mobilize the ankle. It also helps to get a little bit of length going in the calf muscle. As you come to full flexion, push through the heel, and again, we'll try to iron out that little bend in the knee. Keep the core engaged to support the weight of the leg as you lower the thigh down until both thighs are level. Use the big toe to draw 3 circles in towards the midline of the body. Then change direction, take those circles the opposite way. Bring that foot to flexion, then replace that left heel. We're floating it down to rest an inch from the floor, keeping that foot in flexion. Inhaling to lift the arms overhead, backs of the hands an inch from the floor, thumbs together again. Exhaling to push the upper body to the right, opening into the left of the waist and the rib cage. Inhaling back to center. Take another long stretch. Then on the exhale, do the little crunch sequence on this side. So think of it as leading from the sternum rather than drawing the chin towards the knee. So the action is quite subtle and it's all centered into the core rather than recruiting the shoulders, the neck. Exhaling on the effort. So that big noisy out breath as you lift the chest, a nice long welcoming in breath as you release back. Let's do 2 more of these crunches. Then we'll come back to that static contraction, hands behind the thigh, shoulders are still lifted, so we're still working the core. Then slowly roll down through the spine, rest the back of the head on the mat. Bring that left leg to full flexion. So push through the heel. Use the hands on the back of the thigh to draw the thigh a little closer to the chest. Avoid the temptation of pushing into the right foot. Keep the bottom on the floor. Iron out that little bend in the knee and deepen the stretch to the back of the hamstrings. Then as you exhale, bend that knee, hug the knee to the chest. Then replace both feet to the floor. So we're going to come back to the inner thigh work we did earlier. So instead of being in a seated Baddha Konasana, we're coming into a supine Baddha Konasana. So the soles of the feet together, the knees rolled open. Now fundamentally this will change the shape in the lower back. So don't be worried that we can now feel that big lift in the lower back. Just allow the shoulders to take the upper body weight, the back of the hips to take the lower body weight. Then bring the hands behind the head, If we make an interlock with the hands, we can rest the head into the palms, widen the elbows, so you can rest the upper arms, the forearms on the floor. Then on the out breath, we'll use the right elbow to almost like track a line down towards that right knee. So we need to open again into the left of the rib cage, turning the gaze over the left shoulder, keeping those elbows wide, exhaling to engage the core, inhaling back to center, then exhale to squeeze to the opposite side, looking over the right elbow as you widen the left elbow, engage the core, then slide again back towards center. Let the head fully rest into the hands. Let the arms rest again. On an out breath, draw the tummy button in and slide the thighs towards one another. Make sure that the knees are hip width apart, that the heels are hip width apart, and you can feel that connection under the soles of the feet. Let's rest the back of the neck. Bring the hands away from the back of the head and reposition the hands either side of the hips, palms facing up. Exhaling to draw the tummy button in. Inhaling to push into the soles of the feet, lifting the bottom from the floor. So in this supported bridge pose, again think about that equal weight distribution through the back of the shoulders, into the soles of the feet. Inhaling to press the shins forward, lifting the thighs a little higher, opening into the fronts of the thighs, opening into these hip flexors that we often hold tight. As you exhale, gently roll down through the spine and take this slowly. Enjoy this release vertebra by vertebra. Bringing the middle back, then the lower back to the floor. Slide the arms up. Make sure those palms are still facing up towards the ceiling. It's almost as though you're making a T shape with the arms. So the hands come straight out from the shoulders. So Stephanie, just bring your hand, that's it, and turn the palms up. Then exhale, draw the tummy button in, bring the knees in towards the chest. Then roll the knees to the right side as you turn your gaze along the length of the left arm. So not unusual if you feel that left shoulder lift. Let's bring our full focus here, a sense of weighting down through that left shoulder, of breathing into that space on the left side of the ribcage. Then on the next out breath, engaging the core, supporting the weight of the legs as we roll through center and turn the gaze to the opposite arm. Again, we're weighting that right shoulder back to the floor. Just taking a few breaths here to loosen any resistance. Then as you exhale, draw the tummy button in, roll the knees back through center. And again, replace the feet on the mat. Feel that connection. Slide the arms up overhead, resting the backs of the hands on the floor. So quite exaggerated now through the collarbones, through the chest. As you exhale, draw the tummy button in, push the lower back to the floor. It's subtle, but that will gently exaggerate this stretch a little more. Then on the next inhalation, push into the soles of the feet, lift the bottom from the floor. On the out breath, as you roll through the spine, bring the arms up and over. So it's a bit like a Mexican wave here. So the inhale, we lift the hips, we lift the arms overhead. On the exhale, we take our time from the space between the shoulder blades, lifting the arms up and over. Inhaling once more to open into the space. Exhaling to release. Slowly easing that lower back towards the mat. Then on the next out breath, hugging both knees to the chest, hands to the shins, drawing a little figure of 8 with the knees to release any tension in the lower back, to soften that space at the back of the sacrum. Then replace the feet to the floor and take a moment to roll over to whichever side is best for you. If you have low blood pressure, you may prefer the left side. Then bring yourself back up into a seated position. Perfect. You all still with me? You're all still smiling. That doesn't often happen. It must be because you know you've got a week off next week. You cheeky lot. Right, come on to all fours, please. Knees under hips, wrists under shoulders, elbows nice and soft. So naturally, when we come into this position, gravity will take over and we tend to kind of allow the belly to sink to the floor. If you remember last week, we spent a little bit of time engaging the core and finding that space in the lower back. So turn both toes under, exhale, draw the tummy button in. We'll start at a neutral spine position, then we'll continue to draw the tummy button up towards the ceiling, and we'll find that little release in the space of the lower back, keeping the space between the shoulders nice and quiet. Gently nod the chin to the chest, then rest on the top of the feet. Inhale to lift the sternum forward. Exhale to roll up again into that cat stretch. Inhaling to lift the chest forward. Then return once more into neutral spine. So the core remains engaged. There's space at the back of the hips, at the back of the shoulders. We'll take the right foot back, turn the toe under, and press the heel towards the floor. Bring that knee in, take the opposite foot back. And again, this is one of those that I would always say, never expect both sides to be the same. Chances are we've got one side a little tighter than the other. Now bring that knee back in. Make sure the knees are under the hips. If they're too close together, it kind of creates a little bit of imbalance. Again, we'll slide the right toe back, but this time we'll float the heel up so that it's in line with the back of the hip. And rather than twist the hip open, which feels quite comfortable in this position, we want to keep the hips square to the floor as we extend the left arm forward. So keep looking down to that space between where the thumbs were. Every out breath engaging the core. And after a few moments, you'll feel that you're having to work quite hard to keep your balance here. Core engagement at its best. It's almost like you've switched on that little dynamo. Now replace the hand, replace the knee. Slide the left toe back. Lift that heel up. Then extend the opposite arm forward. So one of the keys in this posture is because you kind of feel like you're holding your body weight up, there's that psychology that kicks in that you think you have to put all of your weight onto one wrist. So mindfully take the weight back the way that we would in a downward facing dog. The legs are always going to be stronger than the wrists. Then replace the hand and the knee to the floor. Let's take the knees wide. So we've got the tips of the toes together, lowering down onto the forearms. Bring the tips of the thumbs together. Then push the sit bones back towards the heels, lowering the forehead towards the floor. Back into that space in the inner thighs that we've been exploring. See if you use a deeper out breath, if you can come a little more into this space. Softening between the shoulders, releasing between the hips. Then gently pressing into the forearms, bringing the shoulders directly above the elbows, keeping the tips of the thumbs together, then walking the feet back, turning the toes under, bringing the thighs parallel to the floor. So all of our focus on this nice low plank posture. Again, nowhere to hide. If the core isn't set just right, you'll have too much pressure on the elbows or the shoulders. Try a tiny lift of the bottom, don't exaggerate. See if that helps to engage the core. Now float down onto the thighs, the belly, and the chest. Let's keep those elbows either side of the chest, the palms either side of the head, shoulder blades drawn together. Push into the forearms, inhale to lift the chest. Open your gaze forward, keeping the shoulders away from the ears, gently applying pressure through the thighs and the hips. On an out breath, ease the forehead back to the floor. Draw the right heel in, take hold of that ankle, and tease that heel a little closer towards the bottom. Push now into the left forearm, inhaling to lift the chest. To keep the back nice and quiet, it will help to just open the front of that hip flexor, open through the sternum. And when you're ready, release. Bring the right forearm forward, draw the left heel in. We'll start by drawing that heel a little closer to the bottom. Make sure you don't roll over onto your right side, so keep the hips and the shoulders square. Push into that right forearm, inhale to lift the chest. Gently open out into the thigh, into the front of the hip flexor. Then as you exhale, release, let that ankle release to the floor. Reposition the palms either side of the chest. Draw the elbows in, makes a good shape, supports the shoulders. Push into the palms, inhale to lift the chest. If this is too much for you on your lower back, by all means come a little lower, soften the elbows. Alison, your elbows look a little locked out to me. Can we just have them a tiny bit softer? That's it. Then on the out breath, release. Push again into the palms. Lift the back of the hips up now as you push back into a lovely long child's pose. Try to keep the palms stuck to the floor, pushing the sit bones towards the heels, resting the ears between the upper arms, lifting the fingertips, pressing the wrists to the mat. You might just feel that little fine tuning deep into the stretch to the underarm, might even get there into your lower back. Then lift back up into an all fours position. So we're going to do the kind of third part of the set of this kind of balancing on one hand, one leg. I'll remind you, because you're actually on screen, if you've got the screen to the side of you, don't be tempted to kind of look to the screen while you're doing the posture, because it will knock your shoulders and your hips out of alignment. So either have the confidence to look ahead or adjust if you feel that you need to. So again, we're going to take the right toe back. This time when we lift the foot, we're going to curl that heel in towards the bottom. We're going to take the left hand to grab hold of the top of the right foot, and we're drawing that heel in towards the bottom. So if you've twisted to look at me, make sure the hips and the shoulders are parallel to the floor and that the thigh is parallel to the mat. Wide through the chest, easing that heel a little closer, deepening that stretch to the front of the thigh. Then releasing, bringing the knee and hand back to the floor, resetting the hip width distance. Chances are the knees will come together. Then take that left foot back, and again we float the foot up, bend the heel in, opposite hand to opposite foot, and we keep the chest lifted and make sure that the hips and the shoulders are square, so no twisting on this one. Soft in that supporting elbow. Nice. And breathing would be good. Try not to hold the breath. Then when you're ready, replace that knee to the floor. Lovely. Turn both toes under. Push the sit bones back. Push away from the wrist so that you're not holding yourself up. Then lift the knees. Press the heels towards the floor. Lift the tailbone. If we've still got a little bend in the knees at the moment, don't worry about that. Bend one knee and press the opposite heel to the mat. then switch over to the opposite side. So we're working gently through the backs of the legs just to find a little more space. There's a lot going on in a downward facing dog. We need to get the stretch, we need to get that length, but there's also a lot of strength required to hold yourself up. Let's bring the full focus to weighting both heels towards the floor, lifting the tailbone, opening the backs of the thighs towards the back of the room. If you can remember that exercise of using the strap in front of the thighs, try to recreate that now. Then as you exhale, float down onto the shins, sit back towards the heels. Let's take the tension off the wrists by placing one palm on top of the other and letting the forehead come to rest here. Take a moment to find your breath, to expand again into the back of the ribcage. Then roll through the forehead to bring the left ear parallel to the floor. Then roll through the forehead to bring the right ear parallel to the floor. Come back again to centre. Gently lift the head from the back of the hands. We'll come through an all fours position just for convenience because we're here by bringing the right knee forward. So we're coming into a lunge posture, and the lunge posture again is getting into that lovely space in the hip flexor at the top of the thigh. So we can take a little more into the right knee, but try not to be more than 90 degrees on that front knee. And it might serve you to take the back knee a little further back so that you get into a deeper diagonal through the thigh and the hip flexor. If the knee is directly under the hip, you'll get a little bit stuck in the shape. Now bring the hands in front of the heart. Inhale to lift the arms up overhead. So there's a little bit of balance required. Try resting on the top of the back foot. Sometimes with the toe turned under, it can impede the balance. Engage the core, bring the hands back to heart. Hinge forward. Then turn that back toe under. Lift that back knee up. Now, when we're in this position, I've kind of stopped halfway so that I can show you. Try to keep that heel, that back heel off the floor. It will just give you a little bit more mobility. And we're going to bring the hands in front of the heart. So take them off the floor. A lot of strength here. Then widen the arms. Lift the chest. Keep the faith. Bend that back knee and lift the arms overhead. Beautiful. Widen and step the feet together. Got there in the end. Take the opposite foot back. So the right foot's coming back now. We'll do that same sequence. We're just getting into it in a different way. So when you take the right foot back, if you position the right foot directly behind the left, it doesn't give you any space for the hips to balance. So go a little wider. Make sure that you haven't got that heel rolled in. That back heel often would feel more comfortable rolled in. So bring the inside of the foot parallel to the floor. Keep the heel up. And again, we'll come back to wide arms. Lifting the arms up overhead to sink that back knee to the floor. Then lifting up. Bringing the hands together. Then hinging forward. Both palms to the floor. Sinking that shin to the mat. Resting on the top of the foot. Then inhaling to lift the chest. Getting into this hip flexor, the front of the thigh. Lifting the arms overhead. Bringing the hands back to heart. Hinging forward. Turning the back toe under into a proper full plank. Wide through the collarbones. Diagonal line from the shoulder through the hip to the heel. Bring your awareness to the breath. Let's shift the body weight to the right side, lifting up into a side plank, bringing that left arm over the top of the ear. Back to center. Then shift to the left side. Bringing that top arm over. Back to center. Both hands to the floor. Lowering down. Knees, chest, chin, bottom is up. Inhale to lift the chest. Then turn the toes under. Push up into your downward facing dog. Opening the thighs again to the back of the room. Lifting the tailbone. Taking your upper body weight away from the wrists. Then as you exhale, lower down onto the shins. Sit back onto the heels. Bring the forehead either to the floor or just rest it forward. And reposition the hands either side of the ankles, drawing little circles with the wrists, just to release any tension here. Then bring yourself back up as we come to hero pose. Beautiful. So in hero pose, some of you won't be able to get the bottom all the way to the heels. Don't worry about that because I'm coming out of there any minute. So we're pushing into the shins and we feel the heels directly above the knees. Shrugging the shoulders up towards the ears, then relaxing to let them go. Because we've just been doing the downward facing dog, we'll just take a few circles to release any tension we may have created here. Then we'll follow the nose rather than the chin to turn the gaze over the right shoulder. Lower the chin to that shoulder. Trace the line of the collarbone and take the gaze over the left shoulder. Once more, lower the chin down. Trace that line to center. Then raise the head, top of the head parallel to the ceiling, underside of the chin parallel to the floor. Place the hands on the hips, simply for balance, as we take the right foot away. And notice as we extend this right leg away, we're still a straight line from that shoulder through to the knee. So there's no kind of like bending at the hip here. We're nicely aligned and rooted down through that left shin. Let's simply allow that right hand to rest behind the thigh as we lift the left arm up. And then come into a side extension here, turning the gaze up to that left corner of the room. Inhaling to lift back to center, bringing that right knee in, extending the left foot away. It helps when you extend the foot away to draw the toe forward, making a stopper as you would do if we were doing a forward fold. Left hand behind the thigh. Inhale to lift the right arm up. And again, we're looking up to the corner of the room, so we're keeping the rib cage open. Engage the core, come back to center. Float that hand back down by your side. Then bring that right shin forward. Place the hands on the thigh, turn the back toe under, and come up into a standing posture. Beautiful. So from our standing posture, keep a little slack in the knees as you gently hinge the upper body forward. So our intention is to remain a 90-degree angle at the hips, so the back of the head lining up with the tailbone, drawing the tummy button in, widening through the collarbones, pressing the sit bones to the back of the room. And because we've not got evenly tight or loose hamstrings, we'll lift the right heel from the floor, replace that, then lift the left. So by pedaling one heel then the other, we're just helping to soften that little more restricted side Then bring both heels to the floor, lift the tailbone, iron out that little bend in the knees, bring the hands to wrap around the elbows, sink the forearms until they're parallel to the floor. When you have the belly resting on the thighs, try if you can to avoid bending the knees too much. Nod the chin under and let the ears rest between the upper arms. When you're in this forward fold, just allow a little natural, gentle sway from one side to the other. Don't overdo it. Your body will fall into the rhythm that's right. Then replace the hands to the thighs. Exhale, draw the tummy button in, roll up through the spine, roll the shoulders back and down. Inhale, lift the arms up, press through the fingertips, lift the heels from the mat, balancing for a moment on the balls of the feet. Then exhaling, widening the arms, bringing the hands back either side of the hips, then sinking the heels again to the floor. Lift the fronts of the feet up, spread the toes. It's almost as though you're tipping your weight into the heels. Then rock forward, and rock back. Then open the soles of the feet, fully connected. Soften the knees. Set the pelvis in that bowl position. So perhaps tucking the tailbone under if you need to. Lifting the weight of the rib cage off the belly, lining up the back of the head with the back of the heels. So the sternum remains lifted, the shoulders are relaxed back and down. Lift both arms up overhead. Let the left arm travel forwards and the right arm travel back as we keep the hips and the shoulders square. If you end up swimming the channel, don't worry about it. As long as we're mobilising the shoulders, we're doing the right thing. Lift both arms overhead. Now that your brain's figured it out, opposite way. So right arm forward, left arm back. Takes a lot of concentration. Lift both arms up overhead. Engage the core. Bring those palms back to an Anjali Mudra in front of the heart. Engage the core, remain light and lifted out of the soles of the feet. Lift the right knee, underside of the foot parallel to the floor. Bring your gaze to the horizon point. Just have a moment here of balancing on that left supporting leg. Drawing little circles with the right toe. Going through both ranges of movement. Then replacing that right foot to the mat. Bringing that balance, that focus to the opposite leg. Start by setting the focus and using the big toe to mobilise the ankle, the toe joints. Try not to hold the breath in balance. And replace both feet to the floor. Perfect. Separate the hands. Give everything a little wiggly, wiggly, wiggle. It's not really a yoga thing. I just thought we looked like we needed a wiggly, wiggly, wiggle. And then I'll invite you to come down onto the floor. The lovely thing is you're at home, so you can really properly chill and not worry about things crawling on you out of the grass, which is nice. So if you'd prefer to pull on some socks, snuggle up under a blanket, use an eye pillow, and just take a few moments to adjust, to find the position that best supports you. The choice is yours, whether you lie with the legs extended or bend the knees to support the lower back. Separating the hands and the feet equal distance from the midline of the body. And once more, turning the palms towards the ceiling. in that welcoming gesture of receptivity, ready to accept all the rest and relaxation the universe is going to throw at you. Just take a moment to slowly scan through the body again, switching off any tension in the body, reminding yourself to unclench the jaw, to soften the shoulders, to relax the space across the collarbones, through the hips, to allow the belly to soften and release, to create space for that deepened, lengthened yogic breath. Finding that familiar rhythm, inhaling deeply to the belly, the chest and the collarbones, exhaling fully from the collarbones, the chest and the belly last. Maintain your awareness on the breath. And as you feel the weight of your bones sink a little more deeply into the earth, as you feel your joints soften, as you notice your muscles release and relax, invite your mind to quiet. Gently pin that to-do list to one side and promise yourself just 1 minute away from interruption, from distraction, as you tune your full awareness into the breath. Keep coming back to the sensation of the breath at the tip of the nose. Cool air on the breath in, warm air on the breath out. Anytime the attention wanders, return your focus to the tip of the nose. Allow your breath to become a little noisier. Remain aware of your space within this room. Notice how you hold your body. Notice the texture of your clothing against your skin, the cool air in the room against your face, your hands, and your feet. Now gradually start to make little adjustments to return sensation to the physical body. You may wish to take a long stretch through the body. You may prefer to hug the knees to the chest. You may be ready to roll to one side, to blink the eyes open. Then return in your own time to a comfortable seated position. Now bring your hands to an Anjali Mudra. Touch to the head for kind thoughts, to the lips for kind words, and to the heart for kind intentions. The light in me honours the light in you. Namaste. And I'll switch off the recording now while I remember.